Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast with your hosts, Mike Walters and Eddie Jones. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
All right, welcome back to Ducks and Pucks podcast. This is your host, Mike Walters, and my co-host, Eddie Jones. We took a week off. There wasn't too much going on, but we're back, and we're going to get you guys caught up on what's going on with the Ducks. Not too much news, Eddie, recently. Really, I guess the biggest news is Manson gets an extension. 2 years at $1.65 million, Eddie. It's a move that I like. And what do you think about the Ducks giving Manson this contract?
Yeah, it's sort of like a bridge deal. I don't know how many chances he'll really get this season. Maybe next season with 3 RFAs coming up that we might be able to see him get a couple more chances if somebody doesn't get re-signed. But I think it's a good deal. 2 or 3 year deal is what I think everybody expected with a young player just verging on his making his chances in the NHL. So it's a deal that everybody expected, but it's nice to see him back and be here for the next 2 years.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the majority opinion out there is that he's going to play in San Diego with the Gulls. So I don't think we're going to see him too much, at the NHL level unless, something happens, God forbid, an injury or something with any of the players. But with getting Bieksa in there now to fill the hole, and you got Shane O'Brien coming in as well, it's going to be tough, I think, to see him. We may see him, for a few games, Eddie, which would be good. But I'm glad that they're doing this. It's building out the Ducks blue line, and making sure it's going to be good for the next couple of years.
Yeah, they got all the young guys down there right now, and it makes it easier if you have to end up letting somebody go. You've got Manson and Theodore, Montour, and Pedersen all coming up and will be ready in the next 2 to 3 years. So if you have to let maybe Vatanen or Dupre go next season, it's a little bit easier when you have these guys waiting in the wings.
Exactly. And speaking of the goals too, their jersey got leaked recently by EA Sports. One of our writers, Bryson, saw the preview of the game, and we posted on the website. If you haven't seen it, there's a couple photos of the Gulls jersey. If you look at it, it looks very similar to the Ducks jersey. Obviously, there's some blue outlines around the shoulder area, and the piping on the sides, and then, of course, the Gulls logos in the middle instead. But overall, it looks like a pretty good jersey. Very similar to the Ducks white jersey, Eddie. I think it's one that, a lot of people are going to buy.
Yeah, and I think it's one I would have expected too. I don't think you're going to be surprised unless if that blue was the main color. But, it's a nice jersey, and I mean, it's probably disappointing for the Gulls that it was released the way it was. They took it pretty well on Twitter, but I'm sure EA didn't mean to end up revealing the jersey. And with a lot of people were saying, are the Ducks their jerseys on there too? No, the one of the 4 teams that you can use on that beta for the NHL game are the Ducks, and it only has the 2, the home and away, and then the Stadium Series and so on, and the retro jerseys. So, I think it's just the Gulls already had their jersey ready. They must have been close to being able to reveal it since they had to give it to EA for the game. So, it's disappointing, but all in all, it's a nice jersey. So.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I remember Dan Wood too mentioned this a couple weeks ago on Twitter. But just the way the information comes out, a lot of times people beat the original, or official source of the team. It's been a common thing. Sometimes obviously we get stuff out a little bit faster too. But like in the situation with the Ducks, their third jersey as well, I've been talking to them. They've been really, really hush-hush about it, and I'm going to be working with them to try to pump up. They're going to have an event for it. I don't know the details yet and whatnot, but whatever they tell me is very, very limited, and I don't know what it's going to look like. A lot of people have asked me. I truly don't know. But if I do find out, I probably can't say anything, obviously, because like you said, Eddie, they don't want a repeat of what happened with the Gulls, because it's kind of unfortunate that EA put it out like that. And obviously for us, we don't want to get stuck in some kind of situation like that. But a lot of speculation, Eddie. One of our writers also, Daniel, he came up with a prototype and looked pretty good. But I'm hoping they just go with something orange themed. That's my only really concern for the new jersey.
Yeah, and I think you have to go that way. I mean, you've only got three colors. You've got white, black, and orange. I mean, you do have the gold too, but I've highly doubt that they don't that they go that gold route. So, the only other color would be orange, and you look at the Stadium Series jersey and something like that, and that must be the way they're going because if you make it, you want it to be different than the other jersey. So if you make it white or black, it's kind of pointless in a way. But I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure everybody's gonna like it no matter what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, when I get more info, the stuff that I can put out, obviously I will. Which also comes to the upgrade on the scoreboard. The scoreboard is due to be done in September. I actually have seen a photo of what it will look like, which I can't post. But if you go to our article and look, which I apologize for any confusion because some people saw the photo of the Columbus Blue Jackets screen and for some reason, I guess probably by the way I did the original post, which I redid it, thought that was ours. But the way it looks, and if you go read the article, and Daktronics is the one that's doing it, they put out the sizes and the dimensions and how it's going to look. Basically, it'll be like the Columbus one. It's going to have 4 screens on each side, obviously, and it's going to have the wedge shapes kind of in each corner where they can put more highlights and advertisements and whatnot. So if you go look at the Columbus one, it's similar. Also, it's got a ring on the bottom and a ring on the top to also display stuff. What's going to be different is the screen size. According to Daktronics, it's going to be 20 feet high and 20 feet wide for the sides that face the goals. And then for the sides that face the benches and the press box, it's going to also be 20 feet high but 31 feet wide. And that's why I posted the Tampa Bay one up there for you, because in terms of the actual physical screens, that's what they're saying that it's going to look like. You're going to have 2 medium-sized ones and 2 that are larger. But also my source from the team told me that the sizes could change because they're doing testing and they got to make sure everything works and is correct. So, the dimensions, just know this, the dimensions may change, but the 2 screens facing the benches and the press box should be bigger. And it's going to be exciting. And, whenever I can get in there and, get a photo, I don't know if I'll be able to before preseason or not, but if I can get one that I can put out, then I will. And it's just going to be a really good move, Eddie. The speakers are up already, and I've heard from other people that the sound has been very good at the other events that they've attended.
Yeah, it seems like it's gonna be a little bit different than ones you've seen. I mean, with the rectangle shape obviously being wider on the side of the benches. So, it's nice to see them renovating some things in the arena and updating them a bit. And I mean, it's not gonna change anything production on the ice, but it'll be nice to see what it ends up looking like.
Definitely. And the only real other update that we had as far as the team recently was just Corey Perry back in mid-July. He ended up getting married to his longtime girlfriend. I had a couple Facebook friends that their friends went to the wedding and sent me some of the photos, so I was able to get those up there. So, I'm happy for Perry, obviously, and should be good to go. And that's really the only other player update I got, Eddie. And he actually got married close to your hometown up there in Canada, Toronto area.
Yeah, it's a slow news day in the summer when we have to report on Barry getting married. But yeah, he got married in Peterborough, which is a couple-hour drive from where I live. So that obviously that's his hometown, and I mean a lot of people getting a little bit mistaken and thinking that he lives in London because he played for the Knights, but he was really born in Peterborough, and it's nice to see him get married, and I mean it would be nice to have something more to talk about, but congratulations to him.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the only other player updates that we're really waiting on is again Hagelin and Silverberg. They're still, the last time we heard, they're still in process negotiating with both. That's the last update I've gotten from my sources. So hopefully those will come out soon. I know a lot of people are impatient, wondering why it takes so long, but Murray's doing what he has to do. And he's done all the stuff that he's been doing for the minor league team too, as well. And that brings us to Fox Sports had their Ducks Live off-season show, Eddie, in which we posted on the website. It took me a little bit of time, but I was able to break it down for everybody and upload it on YouTube. You can go on there and you can watch each segment. The one that you're probably all most going to be interested in is segments 2 and 3, because those are the ones that have Murray's comments in there. But I thought the most important part, Eddie, was talking about going out and getting other players, Horkoff, Bieksa, Stewart, and Murray's opinion that the Ducks needed more veteran leadership in the locker room. What's your opinion? You agree with Murray and his assessment of the team this last playoff run?
Yeah, I think we needed more leaders in the locker room for sure. It was evident in the playoffs. People were getting on Getzlaf's back for not leading the team, and Kessler had to step up. But there wasn't a lot of guys, especially on that blue line, other than Boschman, who could lead the team in the right direction, and if they go down, could spur a comeback. And we saw that a lot in the season, but it's a whole different story in the playoffs, and I think he addressed that with adding, Bieksa and Horkoff, and even I mean, there's rumors, but I don't know how much merit's behind them, and Kunitz being linked with the Ducks too. So he's always looking to add some veteran guys, and they still have to be able to play, but having those guys in the locker room is definitely an advantage for the Ducks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that they're targeting the veteran players is exactly what the Ducks needed. And as you mentioned too, the criticism of Getzlaf was a little bit overdone. When you have a sports hernia, those of you that are listening that are athletes understand that it's a serious injury. And Hayward touched on it in the show, saying that his effectiveness is what basically. It was compromised because of that injury, and it's not trying to make an excuse, just trying to say what it is, and that's how it is. I mean, it's hard, Eddie, when you're trying to push off skating or even running or anything with that hernia. You're going to feel it in that lower abdomen area, and it's just I mean, he muscled through it, but it's going to affect you to some degree.
Yeah, and especially when it's a player of Getzlaf's caliber, when you see him struggling, but you don't hear, you don't know about that. You expect him to do so well every game, and he's struggling, and you just assume that he's either not playing up to his level or he's slacking off, and that's hard to see. But when you hear about that injury in the offseason, it makes a little bit more sense from what you've seen from his play during the playoffs, and we all hope he'll be ready for the season, and then by next time we make it to the playoffs next year, that he'll be healthy and ready to go for the whole run.
Yeah, exactly. And they talked about that too, that one of the focuses will be with Boudreaux is getting off to a fast start and doing what they did last year. You know how they locked up basically the first seed. It wasn't till quite to the end, but you noticed at the end, they had that last week where they rotated the defensemen and they rested people. So that's going to be the game plan this year, is hopefully jump off and get to a good start, and then be able to get everybody rested up. I mean, you remember they rested Kessler that one game at the end too, when he had that little his elbow in the wrap. So things like that I think are going to be good, and I think with this team, Eddie, I think they'll be able to get off to a good jump start.
Yeah, especially with the additions with Hagelin and Stewart and Horkoff and BX, I think it's definitely a better team than it was last year. That's not to say anything about the skill level last year. They were a great team last year too, and to improve on that is a great feat. And I'm sure they'll get off to a hot start on the season, and finish near top of the West, if not first place.
And what do you think about Carl Hagelin? Murray talked about it and said that he was a wild card based upon his speed. He said that he believes he's the fastest player in the Western Conference, or him and Cagliano are probably the fastest too. What do you think? You think he gets thrown on the first line, the second line? I think it's going to be a lot of options that they'll be able to use. But how do you think he plays out this year?
I think he always stays in the top six. He's definitely going to play on either that first or second line, and then from there it all depends on where Boudreaux wants to play him. I believe he gets a shot probably on both lines. I think he'd work well with either of them, and it'd be nice to see the Twins play with a guy at the level that Hagelin can play at. But he is a wild card. He is a really fast player. He has skill. He can shoot the puck. He can pass it too. But he's had some subpar seasons with the Rangers, and he's had some great seasons. And I think he has some untapped potential. Just in a similar way that Chris Stewart, people believe he can be, a top six player as well if he gets in the right system with the right team. So I think it all depends on how he fits in our style, but he can definitely be a really effective player for the Ducks.
Yeah, and I think this main issue kind of goes back to, we talked about this over the last couple seasons, but the top left wing spot, I think it really comes down to what the Ducks want to do. I mean, if you're going to stick with Patrick Maroon up there, which I don't have a problem with that. You can stick with him and go with him and the Twins, and you're going more for the size factor. But I kind of am leaning towards a change, Eddie. Maybe you agree or disagree, but I kind of would like to see Hagelin on that top line. To get some more speed in there, to have maybe some more people draw away from Perry and Getzlaf and focus more on Hagelin, and have that kind of situation happen. So that could, change it up and make it better for the Ducks on that first line.
Yeah, it would be nice. We've seen a lot of big guys get a chance on that first line, obviously with Maroon and Bolesky. As well, we've seen Cogliano get a shot up there, and Sakats was up there as well, and they've all done roles a pretty good job, but it's not hard to play. We've mentioned this. It's not hard to play with Getzlaf and Perry. I mean, effectively, you have to adapt to their style, but they're going to get you the puck, and as long as you get it back to them, I mean, you're going to rack up some points. We saw Dustin Penner get almost 50 points on that line, so it would be nice to see a player with some skill get up there. I know when we all saw Sekach play up there, it was a nice, refreshing moment to see a guy with some skill and some ability on the puck play on the line with Getzlaf and Perry. And I mean, Hagelin's just even more of a player that could do those types of things. So him playing with Getzlaf and Perry would be really cool to see, and I hope that's how it starts at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would be a nice change. I mean, I think you could do that, and then you could either put Cogliano, maybe on the second line, Kessler and Silverberg type situation. I mean, obviously you'd have to play and change it around, or like we talked about, Sekach as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. We get a lot of questions about the lineups in the last couple weeks, and obviously we don't have all the answers because the preseason we really got to see what's going to happen. We also don't know if anybody from the goals is going to come up and make it as well. So we'll have to look there and see what happens come September. The real only other big thing that Murray talked about was the defense and the issues he's going to have after next season. And that's probably going to be one of the key situations, Eddie. Looking at the Ducks defense, you've got, Vatanen, Lindholm, and Dupre coming up as RFAs next summer. And then you've already got Bieksa, Fowler, and Stoner signed all the way through to the 2018 and 19 season. So I think they're if the Ducks don't move anybody, it's going to be tough to sign those three guys next summer.
Yeah, and you look at the 7 guys they have, and I believe that no matter how well they're doing or how if a guy's doing poorly, I don't see them trading anybody at the trade deadline either. I'm sure they'd love to take them all into the playoffs regardless of their play. So you look at the contract situation from all of them. I'm sure Lindholm is definitely you'd have to assume that he is going to stay no matter what. And then it comes down to Vatanen and Dupre, and it all depends on what type of defenseman you want to keep. And I mean, Vatanen is a right-handed shot, and that's something you're definitely going to need. But he's more of an offensive defenseman, and Dupre's a bigger guy. He can contribute offensively, but he throws the body around. So it all depends on what kind of guy you want. I mean, realistically, at the trade deadline, you could trade away Stoner and bring up a guy like Manson who's a right-handed shot if you feel he has a better shot of bringing you farther in the playoffs or has an equal shot that Stoner does. But you just have to wait and see. I mean, there's definitely nothing's going to happen until towards the trade deadline that might make this clear a situation. But if not, then you'll have to wait and see when contracts get dealt out next season.
Yeah, that's what Murray said. He's basically going to let him play and fight it out. And I think you're right. If a bigger contract isn't moved, like Stoner's, as you mentioned, I really think it's going to come down to Vatanen and Dupre. I mean, Lindholm is the future. I highly doubt the Ducks will get him somewhere else unless it had to be some kind of phenomenal deal. But I really think the Ducks give him Lindholm a good deal. And then they try to figure out, Dupre or Vatanen in the end, like you said, if they don't make a move by the trade deadline. So that's kind of what we're looking at. That's what's going on that show. You can go back and watch it. I broke it down by the 4 segments that were on the TV, and I took out the commercials for everybody, so you can go by topic. They're broken down, but you really want to watch the second and the third ones, because those are the ones that they talk about the moves. Murray's in both of those, and they talk about the prospects as well. So those are the best two parts. We also had a handful of fan questions again this week, Eddie. We had one from Jeremy that he talked about all the moves that were made by teams in the Western Conference, and he wonders how the Ducks will stack up against Calgary, Dallas, Colorado, and San Jose, to name some. And just what do you think? How would we do against them, in regular season, and if we see them in the postseason?
Well, I wouldn't worry too much about Dallas and Colorado in the first round. You'd have to face them in the wild card if that situation came about. And Colorado didn't really add too much. They actually lost more than I think than they gained. They lost Ryan O'Reilly and obviously added Boschman. But they're still a good team. They're a team that made the playoffs 2 years ago and surprised everybody. And McKinnon is there, Landeskog, Duchesne, Varlamov could have a rebound season in that. And adding Boschman makes their defense stronger. So I think they're still a really good team. But they won't worry the Ducks too much, most likely in the first round. Same with Dallas being in the Central. There's always a chance you play them in the first round. But adding keeping Spezza, Sagan, and Ban, and then adding Sharp to that mix and adding Niemi. It's just great moves by them, and solidifying, I guess, even a better offense by adding Sharp, and then strengthen your defense too. And the two teams you would assume that we'd have to worry about definitely are Calgary and San Jose, being in the Pacific Division. Calgary, great story last year, a bunch of young players on their team, and adding Sam Bennett for a full season this year is going to make that offense even scarier, and somehow stealing Dougie Hamilton away from Boston to make that defense even better is a scary situation for any team in the Pacific Division. So they're going to be real contenders next season. I know it's hard to believe that already Calgary is going to be contenders to that Pacific Division, but they have a really good team, and San Jose is in the same boat. I mean, we've made fun of them for choking for the last I don't know how many years, and they just seem to still be around. Adding Paul Martin is a great signing for them. They still got all those guys up front that can hurt you, and I think their only question is in net. But if they can, solve that situation, they'll be a scary team to face too.
Yeah, and one other team that we love to hate is the Kings too, as well. So I mean, I know the Kings. We've talked about all their problems they've had with Stoll and Richards and all these other issues going on, but they're still going to fight it out with us, Eddie. Jonathan Quick actually had a little say about Perry and Getzlaf recently in an article too, and talked about how they try to wear down the opposing goalies by getting behind the net and whatnot. And it was a good piece, pretty good, respect level there on the thing. But I think you don't count the Kings out either too. I think San Jose and Calgary, like you said, they made some moves. They're gonna probably be more of a threat, but the Kings are always going to play us tough, and that they got to probably be upset and more hungry. You go all the way a couple years ago, and then you fall flat last season. So I think that those are probably the three teams in our division, Eddie, that are going to give us the most difficult time.
Yeah, and really the only team you can count out 100% is Arizona. I mean, Edmonton is a long shot, but adding McDavid and possibly Darnell Nurse coming up, and Griffin Reinhardt, and getting Cam Talbot, that's a team that improved a lot from last season. There's a long way to go for them, and I think it's a long shot to make the playoffs. But they're a team that could surprise everybody too and pull off sort of what Calgary did last year. And Vancouver still sticks around. They still have Ryan Miller in that, still have the Sedins. Radovan Vrbata's still there. They're still a pretty good team, and I think between those six teams, it's definitely going to be a difficult situation in that Pacific Division.
The next question we have is from Felix. We kind of talked about this, but he asked if the Ducks are going to have a hard time re-signing all the RFAs next year, especially on defense. And what do we think that the defense will look like in the next offseason? And you and I talked about this. I'm pretty sure that someone is going to be gone off the defense, if not by the trade deadline, but by the summertime, Eddie. That's really the only thing I can think of, just because given the three locked up contracts we have with Fowler, Bieksa, and Stoner, and then the three rising young talents that are going to be looking for pay increases. So That's the only thing I can really think to add to that is that someone will be gone next summer, at least one. Who? It's going to be interesting. But like you said, I think it just really comes down to what moves the Ducks do prior to the trade deadline.
I think it comes down to if Murray and Boudreau and the rest of the organization believes that one of these young guys, if not more, are ready for the next season after this one. I know Shade Theodore has a great season in the AHL, and they think he's ready to come up and play, 80 games in the NHL, or Manson's ready to come up, or Montour or Pedersen, or any of those guys. If they think they're ready to come up and take the role away from Stoner or Dupre or Vatanen, then I'm sure we'll see one of them go. And it's not a terrible situation to be in. It's not like we'll lose anybody for nothing. And they're not UFAs, they're RFAs, so you can still trade their rights if you end up wanting to move them. You can make a move at the deadline. We'll just have to wait and see. It's an interesting situation to be in. I mean, we have a lot of young guys who are talented and come up and make a difference, but you also don't want to lose any of these guys who are in the current top six. So, this is where GMs end up building the team they want. So we'll have to see the type of moves that Murray will make.
Agreed. Just wait and see is all we can really offer up at this point. We had another question from Khalid. What are the chances of the Ducks picking up James Van Riemdijk? What do you think on that one, Eddie?
Very, very slim. I really don't see the Toronto Maple Leafs trading away James Van Riemsdyk. I know they're in rebuild, but he's only 26, and I believe he's him and Kadri are the central core pieces of that rebuild, and the guys who can already make a difference and put up points on the score sheet. So I think those are the two guys that they have to stay with the Leafs. I mean, everybody jokes about the Leafs making dumb trades and moves to put them in the hole, but there's no way you trade these guys. I mean, Kessel, that makes sense. There was an issue with him in the locker room and in the media, and I don't think they wanted to deal with anymore, so they traded him away. But there's no issue with Van Riemsdyk. I mean, I'd love to see him on that top line with Getzlaf and Perry, but there's almost no chance he gets moved away from Toronto.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see that move happening, and I don't really see the Ducks doing too much from here on out. And that kind of leads us to our next question. It's a two-part question. I'll go with the first part. It's from Adam. He says, "Do you think that Bob will still make another move prior to the season? And in conjunction with that, do we think that the Ducks still need a top end talented left wing to play on that top line and put some pressure off the Twins?" The first part, I don't really think that there's going to be any moves, Eddie. I think we've talked about that. As far as the left wing, it just really comes down. We talked about this. It really matters what Murray and the rest of the organization want to do on the top line. If they want to stay with size and Maroon, or if they want to go with speed and try Hagelin or maybe Sekach. That's kind of how I look at it, Eddie.
Yeah, and I'm sure everybody want a top line left wing. I've been saying this for years. I'm sure everybody has this. We need a guy the same level or close to the same level as Getzlaf and Perry to play on that top line. But you gotta look it up. You gotta look out there. There's not a lot of teams who have three guys of that level playing on the same line. Dallas might have that this year with Sharp, Sagan, and Bann. And I mean, Brandon Saad, you can't really say he's at the same level if when he plays on the line with Taves and Kane. He got a big deal in Columbus this year. But I mean, I could see Hagelin being that type of player. I mean, not the same, they don't play the same way, but putting up the same numbers and being that kind of effective player if he plays to play with Getzlaf and Perry. And if you're looking towards the future, I think Nick Ritchie has a great shot of being a really effective player on that line. He's a similar type of player to Perry, a big physical guy, he can shoot the puck. And I think if you look towards the future, he could be, a really effective player on that line as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think Richie's one that is definitely going to have our attention and our eye, in the preseason. That's another thing that Murray was happy about. He talked about in the interview too, is that since they're all in San Diego, he said he's going to be going to San Diego a lot more, and he's going to be watching the practices down there as well. So it's going to be good too because he's going to get to know these players better, and they're going to get to know him better. So that can help the Ducks too. Being able to just bust somebody or have them drive up the freeway is going to make it easier to figure it out. But I think that left wing spot, like we said, it's going to come down to who they're going to put in there. Size or speed is going to be the issue, and I don't think that they're going to get anybody else at least, in the next month or so. The other part of Adam's question is in regard to the goalies, which we can kind of spend some time on. He says, when the time comes, do you think Gibson will be the one to take, the net, and Anderson will be the one left out? Or do you think that the Ducks, try to keep both and sign them at the end of this season? Because obviously also they're both going to be RFAs. And then you add Hudobin in the mix too, Eddie, which Murray did talk about. So we're going to have a little bit of a goalie, competition here in September.
It's not the first time either. We had Fox and Hiller and Anderson before, and now we've got Hudobin, Gibson, and Anderson. I know we've mentioned this a lot of times. Anderson and Hudobin are probably the guys who go in 1-2 into the season, and they'll be fighting for 1-2. I mean, Anderson will most likely get the first start of the season, and he'll be the guy that they're leaning towards for a start. But Hudobin has the ability to fight Anderson and push him out of the number one for most of the season. He pushed out Cam Ward in Carolina. And he's a great goaltender and a really good guy to back up, or even push Anderson to play better. And as regards to them getting both signed at the end of the season, I think it all depends on their play. I'm sure they would rather re-sign Anderson and Gibson, and Hudobin's the most likely guy to walk. I mean, even if he has a great season, I just see them re-signing Anderson, and Gibson won't be too hard to re-sign if he stays most of the season in the AHL, which I think is the best bet for him. He'll sign a sort of bridge deal, probably a 1 or 2 year deal at something low, around 2 million, and then he'll get his chance in the NHL to prove that he can be a number one, because I definitely still think he has that potential that Adam mentions, that top end potential to be a number one starter and a league goalie in this league. And I mean, he just needs a little bit more seasoning to reach that potential.
Yeah, and we talked about that too, as far as the Gibson situation, him getting some more time down in San Diego, which I agree with you. I do think the interesting thing is Murray talked about Hudobin, and Hudobin's attitude is that he wants the number one spot. So, I still think it's Anderson's. I agree with you. I don't think Hudobin takes it away. But if Hudobin comes in and plays very well, I think it's a good thing regardless, if he's not going to be number one, because then that's going to push Freddie, and that's going to make him even better, I think, Eddie, especially because, last season was really his first deep run into the playoffs, which, he got criticized a little bit at the end because he gave up so many goals towards the end, which you and I already covered this. It wasn't just his fault. Obviously, the team as a whole, kind of had a meltdown, especially in games 6 and 7. But I think that attitude, though, that Hudobin's going to bring is going to benefit Freddie, and it's going to benefit the team all the way around, Eddie.
Yeah, for sure. You always want to have competition in that. You don't want a guy to get too comfortable. I mean, you obviously want him to get in a rhythm, but it's always nice to have a guy, breathing down your neck and pushing you to play better and to keep your spot. And I mean, Anderson's a pretty cool guy, and he's calm under pressure, but to know that, if he doesn't play well, somebody's there right behind him that's equally as skilled to take his position, I think will, do great for his play during the season in the playoffs.
And additionally, if you haven't seen it too, in regard to the goalies, Dave that does the artwork for the masks, he did a new one for Gibson and Anderson. We posted those on the website. And you can vote for which one you like better. I think right now the edge is to Anderson. People seem to like the Batman Lego themed over the Duck Hunt one, which I kind of like the Duck Hunt one just because I'm tired of the Duck Hunt jokes. I think I sent a tweet to the Sharks or somebody, I can't remember recently, with them making those jokes, Eddie, because just kind of over it. But either way, I like both the masks. They look good, and I don't know for sure, but I think Hudobin might be getting one too from Dave too, Eddie.
Yeah, I'm sure. They all seem to be going to the same place for the masks and taking the sort of the same type of theme too. And I like them. They're fun masks, and it shows their personality in the mask, and they'll be fun to watch them play next season.
The real only other question we had, which actually I got a bunch of them, and some of them weren't really nice questions, more comments, I guess. But some people had asked about some of the stats that we provide, and if you notice on the website, we've changed it up a little bit now. When you read the articles that we write, I've put down the websites that we use for the stats. If you look at the bottom now, you'll notice for the players that Hockey Reference is the one that we use primarily. And then for the minor league guys, we use eliteprospects.com. So you can go to both those websites and look up the stats. Also, if you'll notice in our articles, I don't know if I mentioned this, but the player names that are highlighted, when you click on the name, it goes to each of those websites, depending on if they're minor league or NHL, obviously, and has the stats on there. So both those websites are very good. I would say the stats are probably 99% accurate, Eddie, because I haven't had a problem yet with those. I'm sure maybe they make a mistake here and there. Like sometimes I make a mistake once in a while, I'm human. But we use those and, probably a few others, Eddie. I think maybe like TSN we like to look at too, sometimes ESPN.
Yeah, and there's always going to be a mistake somewhere, and we try our best linking the stats in the end of articles. So, I mean, you know where they come from now. So, if you see a mistake, just nicely point it out. We don't have to deal with too many trolls, at least.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's on there, so you know where we get it from, and you can see it on there, and that's where most of the player stats come from. The only other updates that we really have is I know I sound like a broken record, but the website's almost done and updated. It's gonna be really good. It's just a lot of I'm trying to work on a lot of the coding to get all the websites, the store, the podcast, everything linked into one. And I have some guys working on it, but it takes a little bit of time, unfortunately. And I'm hoping to have it should have it before the season starts. So we're still working on that. Also, we have tickets that we're going to give away to opening night. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. It's youtube.com/DucksNPucks podcast. Go on there. We gave away tickets last year to the opening game. We gave away tickets to Fan Appreciation Night. We'll be doing the same thing this time around, and we'll have a little. We may do a similar trivia phrase thing, or maybe a trivia thing. I'm not really sure the contest we're going to do, but we're going to do that coming up here, probably around the end of August, beginning of September, and get you guys a chance to win some tickets. And we're also still giving away T-shirts as well on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/DucksNPucks blog. So you can go on there. We're doing weekly giveaways for duck shirts or shirts that we make. Other than that, hopefully we'll be back next week. Maybe we'll get some more updates on a few other players and whatnot. And that's it. Thanks for listening.